that they're going to put all this protection. But they take away the protection. So if you all look at the top of the page, Article 42.5 is what we currently have. Now there's more as well of amazing protection, but this is what they're going to delete. Okay? Now, this article is particularly dear to me and should be very dear to every child with special needs in this country, because when we fought the Sinnot case in the High Court and established that every child, special needs and not in the country, had a right to appropriate education and to the help that they needed, not just teachers, but therapists, healthcare, medical treatment, whatever a child needed to develop. We use this. This was a very vital part of both my son's case and my case. Okay? Now, if we can just read it. In exceptional cases where the parents, for physical or moral reasons, fail in their duty towards their child. Okay, what does that mean? What's a moral reason? Okay, go back to Article 41. The family is the moral institution in the state. Right? So if for moral reasons you fail your child, the family fails for moral reasons, in other words, something they do, and that's your abuse, your deliberate neglect, or, fault neglect, you're just really careless, you don't care, whatever. It's exceptional, but it happens. Then, for moral reasons, then the family, the moral institution, that particular family loses its legitimacy, its authority over the children, and the state must step in for the sake of the children. And the state must step in appropriately, so that they don't do more harm than good to the child, and with respect to their rights. And we'll get on to their natural and prescriptible rights in a minute. That's the right to be fed, to be nourished, to be nurtured, to, have all those basic freedoms of the human person that we have in Article 40, 41. Okay. So, but also it says here, and it's very important, that it also is if the parents fail for physical reasons. Now what does that mean? That means if the parents fail for something that isn't their fault. A physical reason means something that's not their fault. A circumstance. They might be poor. They might be put out in the street by the bank because of a mortgage that they no longer can pay. They might have lost a job. They may have a disability. Maybe their child has a disability, which makes parenting them so much more complicated that they fail the child. They try, but they fail. And this is the argument we made. We said that Jamie's disability was so complex that even though I had spent more time than on any of my other children, he still couldn't feed himself. He still couldn't communicate. He still wasn't toileting. Something every parent does in the course of their parenting. So I had failed. Wasn't my fault, but I had failed for physical reasons. So the state had to, and we proved this in court, the state had to supply for my failure because Jamie was suffering. And that was with therapy, it was teaching, and that applies to everyone. Now maybe the parent has a disability, or maybe, and I'll give you an example, a mother I know with multiple sclerosis. And because of that, the HSE had to not take the children. She could still love her children. She could still listen to them and read to them and find out how their school day went, but she could no longer do the housework and the things they needed. So she was failing to a certain degree. So the state had to step in and put in good home help into the home and support that situation so she could do the mothering she could, but have the place, the gap supplied. And that's Article 42.5. And every one of us could be counting on that in the morning, or our grandchildren, or whatever. So, and not only that, not only does the state have to step in, but they have to do it appropriately. And I'll give you one more example. My sister died very unexpectedly 8 years, and her children came to me, 7 of them. But in the last 3 years of her life, 4 years of her life, social workers recognized that she was failing. She was a great mom, she loved her kids, but she was failing. Her health was breaking down. We didn't know she was going to die, but there was a sense in which she wasn't coping. So very sensitively, the social workers, very old, experienced social workers, I might add, put in 2 hours a day of home help. And it allowed her to continue to mother and her kids to get through those years in good shape till the day she died. And that's what this means. That's when this constitutional article is working well. And sometimes it works very well. What it's not supposed to mean, where it's a physical reason, not the fault of the parent, it's not supposed to mean that they breeze in, put the kids in care, and, split up the family. They're supposed to help the family. Okay? And they want to take this out, and they're supposed to do it with appropriate means, with respect to the rights of the child to be loved, to be nurtured, to have their mother, have their father, whatever, but to get that help. Now, that's being taken out, and although they are going to deal in the new wording with safety, welfare, abuse, in a much weaker way, they completely get rid of this obligation to help where it's not the parent's fault, or it's not the child's fault, but the child's missing out. Okay? And this is a huge, huge loss. And in fact, the Sinnot case and other cases like it, there have been many of them, the O'Donoghue case, etc., would all have been lost without this article. And the state could have treated families like dirt, as they do in many cases. Anyways, that's why we wind up taking them to court. Okay, now what are they going to put in? And we'll skip down to, the state recognizes and affirms the natural and imprescriptible rights of all children, and shall, as far as practicable by its laws, protect and vindicate those rights. Okay, that sounds good, but let's go back on those words. Here, the natural and imprescriptible rights of the child kick in. Now, the child has the natural and imprescriptible rights, but they're within the family. Because when things are okay, when parents aren't failing, the family is the natural institution. And as I said, family doesn't mean parents, it means everyone. It's the whole unit. They're the institution that takes care of those rights. Okay? But down here, so when there's failure, then the state has to keep an eye on those while they help for the failure. But down here, they're talking about the state guaranteeing the natural imprescriptible rights of all children, right, before failure. So that means no longer does the family guarantee them. The state guarantees them. So in other words, and we'll get on to the difference in what we mean by rights, but in other words, the state gets right in there in the middle of the family between parents and children. So the state insert themselves in such a way that we will see, as we are seeing in other countries like Germany, the state will start having cases